The laughter echoed across the Galactic Council chamber as Earth's final diplomat stood alone, surrounded by civilizations that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. They mocked humanity's pleas for peace, dismissed every warning, and celebrated what they believed was Earth's inevitable surrender. Then every screen in the chamber suddenly went black. A single message appeared in cold white letters. Diplomatic authority has ended. Military command has assumed control. Seconds later, something larger than a moon emerged from hyperspace. And for the first time in galactic history, the laughter stopped. Silence settled over the Galactic Council after the laughter finally faded. Ambassador Daniel Hayes stood perfectly still, his hands folded behind his back, his expression calm despite the humiliation. He had expected this. For nearly 70 years, humanity had walked into chambers like this one carrying nothing but treaties, trade offers, and peaceful intentions. Every single time, the galaxy laughed. To the elder races, humans were newcomers, barely 2 centuries into faster-than-light travel. Short-lived, emotional, reckless, interesting, useful, never dangerous. The enormous council chamber overlooked the brilliant star of Helios Prime, its golden light reflecting across hundreds of floating platforms where representatives from dozens of species watched Earth with open amusement. Council Speaker Zarthok leaned forward. "So," the towering reptilian said, his deep voice echoing across the chamber, "has Earth finally accepted reality?" Daniel looked directly into the alien's glowing eyes. "No." Another wave of laughter rolled through the room. One delegate slammed 4 clawed hands against his desk. "You've lost 3 colonies." Another added with a grin, "Your shipping lanes are collapsing." A third chuckled. "Half your trade fleet has already surrendered." Daniel remained calm. "You're mistaken." The translator drones repeated his words in every known language. "The people you attacked weren't soldiers." That made the laughter even louder. "Oh, buddy," one avian ambassador said, shaking feathered wings, "you humans still don't get it. This galaxy doesn't reward kindness. It rewards power." Daniel nodded slowly. "I agree." The chamber grew slightly quieter. For the first time, someone wondered why the human wasn't arguing. Instead, he seemed almost disappointed. The speaker narrowed his eyes. "What exactly are you implying, Ambassador?" Daniel took one slow breath. For 70 years, he looked around the massive chamber. Earth believed peace was stronger than fear. He paused. "We still believe that." Another delegate scoffed. "Then surrender," Daniel smiled. A small smile, barely noticeable. "No." The chamber doors suddenly opened. Every head turned. A robotic courier floated silently toward the human ambassador carrying a sealed black data cylinder. Daniel accepted it without surprise. The council watched carefully. He inserted the cylinder into the communicator built into his wrist. Only one sentence appeared. "Diplomatic protocol terminated." Below it, another message. "Military command now has jurisdiction." Daniel closed his eyes for a brief moment, not in fear, in acceptance. When he looked up again, his voice had changed. Colder, steadier. "As of this moment," he said, "I am no longer Earth's highest representative." Confused whispers spread throughout the chamber. Speaker Zarthok frowned. "Then who is?" Daniel looked toward the enormous observation window overlooking the stars. "You'll know soon enough." The council erupted into laughter once again. Outside, space remained calm. Peaceful, empty, at least. That's what everyone believed. More than 3 light-years away, hidden beyond the edge of a dead nebula, thousands of engines ignited in complete silence. One by one. Formation after formation. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, supply fleets, escort squadrons. Then the stars themselves seemed to disappear as an object so unimaginably massive blocked the light of an entire system. Its hull stretched for dozens of kilometers. Cities could have fit inside its armored spine. Millions of lights awakened across its surface. The crew had waited decades for a single order. Now it had arrived. On the bridge, every officer stood. The fleet commander looked toward the navigation display. Confirmed destination, Galactic Council capital. Estimated arrival, 8 minutes. The commander nodded once. His next words were transmitted across more than 8,000 human warships. Humanity offered peace. A pause. They chose arrogance. Every bridge answered together. "Ready." The commander gave the final order. Bring the Titan home. Across the darkness of space, reality itself began to bend. The first warning didn't come from a military sensor. It came from an observatory. Far beyond the borders of the Galactic Council, an automated research station watching a dead nebula detected something impossible. The stars behind the nebula had vanished. Not dimmed, not hidden by cosmic dust. Gone. The station's artificial intelligence recalculated the readings 17 times before transmitting an emergency alert. Unknown mass detected. Within seconds, the message reached military headquarters on Helios Prime. General Varrock frowned as the report appeared before him. How large? The operations officer hesitated. Sir, the computers can't determine its full size. Varrock looked up. What do you mean they can't? The object extends beyond the scanner's maximum range. The command center fell silent. That had never happened before. Send long-range probes. They already have. And no response. They were destroyed, the officer swallowed. No, sir. Then where are they? We don't know. Meanwhile, inside the Galactic Council chamber, the debate continued. Several delegates were already discussing how Earth's remaining colonies would be divided once the surrender became official. Daniel Hayes remained silent. He simply watched the stars beyond the massive observation window. Then, the room grew darker. At first, nobody noticed. A delegate continued laughing. Another signed a trade agreement. A third ordered refreshments. Only when the sunlight faded completely did the chamber become quiet. What just happened? Someone whispered. Every eye turned toward the window. The star Helios still burned, yet something enormous had drifted between the station and the sun. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't a moon. It moved. Slowly, deliberately. The Council's emergency scanners activated automatically. Across hundreds of holographic displays, the same message flashed in crimson letters. Object exceeds database limits. Speaker Zarthok stood. Magnify the image. The hologram zoomed closer. Dark gray armor. Thousands of glowing engine ports. Layer upon layer of reinforced plating. Rows of weapon batteries stretching farther than the eye could follow. Someone whispered, "That's a fleet." Another officer shook his head. "No," his voice trembled. "That's the flagship." Gasps echoed throughout the chamber. Around the massive vessel emerged hundreds of escorts. Then thousands more, destroyers, heavy cruisers, missile carriers, electronic warfare ships, medical support vessels, supply carriers, each moving with perfect discipline. No unnecessary transmissions, no celebration, no threats, just absolute precision. General Varrock received another report. "Sir, what now?" "We've counted over 8,000 human warships." Varrock's expression hardened. "Impossible. Our satellites confirm it. But Earth only has a defensive navy." The officer looked directly at him. "They lied," Daniel finally spoke. "No." Every head turned toward him. "We simply stopped explaining ourselves." Outside, the enormous flagship continued advancing. Its surface alone contained enough hangars to house entire alien fleets. Dozens of kilometer-long rail cannons slowly rotated into firing position. Shield generators brighter than cities activated one after another. Across every military frequency in the system, a calm human voice broadcast a single message. "This is the United Earth Navy. We have arrived to recover our citizens. We will not fire unless fired upon. Move your warships away from Earth-controlled space." There was no anger, no shouting, only certainty. Inside the council chamber, nobody laughed anymore. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy realized humanity had never been weak. It had simply chosen patience. And patience had just reached its limit. No one in the Galactic Council chamber moved. For nearly a full minute, every delegate stared through the massive observation window at the colossal human flagship. It drifted through space with terrifying confidence, surrounded by thousands of escort vessels that held perfect formation. Not a single weapon had fired, not a single threat had been made, yet the silence felt heavier than any declaration of war. General Varrock finally broke it. "Bring every defense fleet online." Officers rushed to their stations. Within moments, alarms echoed across Helios Prime as orbital shipyards released hundreds of warships. Massive battle cruisers powered up their engines while defense satellites rotated toward the approaching human fleet. On every military channel, commanders waited for orders. Then another transmission arrived from the Titan. "This is Admiral Marcus Kane of the United Earth Navy. My fleet has entered this system peacefully. I repeat, we will not initiate hostilities. But understand this. If any human civilian or diplomatic vessel is attacked," the Admiral paused. "Our response will be immediate." The sentence ended. No dramatic music, no shouting, just absolute confidence. Inside the council, Speaker Zarthok slammed his claws against the podium. "This is intimidation." Daniel Hayes calmly looked at him. "No, this is restraint." The speaker's eyes narrowed. "You dare lecture us after invading our capital?" Daniel answered without raising his voice. "An invasion destroys. We haven't destroyed anything. You've surrounded us. We surrounded you without firing a single shot." That answer spread through the chamber like ice. Several delegates exchanged nervous glances. He was right. The humans had complete tactical superiority. Yet not one casualty had been reported. Far outside the station, aboard the Titan-Class Warship UES Resolute, Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the command bridge. The bridge itself resembled a command center more than a traditional warship. Giant holographic displays floated above tactical pits while officers monitored thousands of friendly ships simultaneously. Every movement was calm, professional. Years of preparation had led to this moment. A young communications officer looked toward the admiral. "Sir, enemy fleets continue forming defensive lines." Kane nodded. "They're scared. Should we target their command ships?" "No." "Lock weapons?" "No," the officer blinked. "Then, what are we doing?" Kane folded his hands behind his back. "We're giving them one final chance." Another officer smiled slightly. "They won't take it." "Probably not. But history will remember who reached for peace first." The bridge fell silent again. That was the human way. Strength didn't replace diplomacy, it protected it. Suddenly, the tactical display flashed red. "Sir?" A sensor officer stood. "Multiple unidentified signatures emerging behind our formation." Everyone turned. Dozens, then hundreds, then nearly 500 alien warships exited hyperspace. Not council vessels. Different designs, different colors, different insignias. Kane recognized them immediately. The Varkesh Dominion? His executive officer frowned. They came to finish Earth while the council was distracted. Kane gave a slow nod. So the predators finally smelled blood. The Dominion fleet commander transmitted without hesitation. "Human fleet, you are outnumbered. Withdraw immediately." Several officers on the Titan exchanged amused looks. One quietly muttered, "They still think this is our whole fleet." Kane almost smiled. "Open a channel?" The connection stabilized. The alien commander appeared, wearing polished black armor covered in battle medals. "You have 1 minute to retreat." Admiral Kane answered with the same calm expression he had worn all day. "No," the alien commander laughed. "So Earth has finally grown brave." Kane shook his head. "No, we've simply run out of reasons to stay quiet." Then he turned toward his tactical officer. "Signal Task Force Orion." The officer's eyes widened. "Sir, the reserve fleet?" "Exactly." Seconds later, across the darkness beyond the system's outer edge, hundreds of new hyperspace portals began opening, then thousands. The real human fleet had finally arrived. The darkness beyond Helios Prime erupted into light. One hyperspace gateway appeared, then another, and another. Within seconds, thousands of brilliant blue tears split open the fabric of space, stretching across the outer edge of the system like a glowing wall. Every military sensor aboard the Galactic Council stations overloaded at once. Warning sirens screamed. Navigation computers froze. Even the automated defense satellites temporarily shut down as they struggled to process the impossible amount of incoming mass. Inside the council chamber, panic spread for the first time. A frightened delegate shouted, "How many ships is that?" No one answered, because no one knew. General Varrock stared at the tactical display as the numbers climbed beyond anything he had ever seen. 12,000, the count continued. 14,000, it refused to stop. 18,000, an officer looked pale. "General, our scanners have reached their tracking limit." Varrock slowly looked up. "Estimate?" The officer took a shaky breath. "More than 20,000 human warships." The room fell completely silent. For decades, every intelligence agency in the galaxy had agreed on one fact. Earth possessed only a modest defensive fleet. They had been wrong, very wrong. Aboard the UES Resolute, Admiral Marcus Kane watched the reserve fleet arrive with quiet satisfaction. Massive carriers emerged first. Behind them came missile platforms larger than most alien cruisers. Electronic warfare vessels spread into precise formations, creating a protective shield of encrypted communications around the entire fleet. Hospital ships followed close behind, fuel tenders, repair docks, civilian evacuation transports. This wasn't simply a battle fleet. It was a complete mobile civilization prepared for a campaign that could last years. Commander Sarah Mitchell stepped beside Kane. Our logistics groups have linked with the main formation. Excellent. Supply levels, 98%. Ammunition, full. Medical readiness, fully operational. Kane nodded. Good. He wasn't interested in winning one battle. He intended to ensure no human colony would ever stand alone again. Across the battlefield, the Varkesh Dominion fleet suddenly looked much smaller. Its commander frowned at the endless stream of human vessels. This is impossible. His intelligence reports had promised an easy victory. Instead, humanity had revealed an armada unlike anything seen in recorded history. One of his officers whispered, "Commander, should we retreat?" The question hung heavily on the bridge. Before he could answer, another transmission arrived. It was Admiral Kane. "This is your final warning. Withdraw your fleet. No shots have been fired. There is still time to leave." The Varkesh commander clenched his fists. "You expect us to believe this isn't an invasion?" Kane answered immediately. "If we intended to invade." He paused. "You wouldn't be asking that question." The alien commander felt a chill run through his body. There was no arrogance in the human's voice, only certainty. Back inside the Galactic Council, Ambassador Daniel Hayes finally stepped forward. "You all spent 70 years asking why humanity invested so heavily in engineering, logistics, and industry instead of conquest." No one interrupted him. "You assumed we were slow. You assumed we were afraid. You assumed diplomacy was our only option." He looked around the chamber. "It never was," a delegate quietly asked. "Then, why wait?" Daniel's expression softened. "Because every generation deserves one honest chance to choose peace." He looked toward the enormous Titan hanging outside the station. "But peace only survives when good people are strong enough to defend it." Those words echoed through the chamber. No one laughed. No one argued. At that very moment, another alarm sounded aboard every ship in the system. A massive energy surge had been detected, not from the human fleet, from somewhere far beyond it, deep in interstellar space. An unknown supermassive vessel had just entered hyperspace. Its energy signature dwarfed everything on the battlefield. Even Admiral Kane slowly turned toward the tactical display. For the first time since arriving, his calm expression disappeared. "What?" he whispered. "Is that?" The bridge of the UES Resolute fell into complete silence. Every tactical display flashed with the same impossible reading. Unknown hyperspace signature. The energy output was unlike anything recorded in the archives of the United Earth Navy. It wasn't merely larger than the Titan-Class flagship. It was different. Its hyperspace wake distorted nearby stars, bent long-range sensor beams, and disrupted communications across several light minutes. Commander Sarah Mitchell looked at the numbers twice before speaking. "Sir, this isn't Varkesh technology." Admiral Marcus Kane nodded. "I know. Can we identify it?" "No match in any database." A young intelligence officer turned pale. "Sir, whatever is coming is over 200 kilometers long." The bridge became eerily quiet. Even veteran officers exchanged uneasy glances. For the first time in decades, humanity had encountered something completely unknown. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, emergency meetings were forgot. Delegates who had been arguing only minutes earlier now stared at the giant tactical hologram floating above the center of the room. General Varrock slowly shook his head. "It isn't ours." Speaker Zarthok answered immediately. "It isn't ours either." One by one, representatives from every major civilization confirmed the same thing. No one recognized the approaching vessel. For the first time in recorded galactic history, every known power faced the same mystery. Daniel Hayes quietly watched the display. "So," he said. "It finally came." Several delegates looked toward him. "You know what this is," Daniel answered honestly. "No, but we prepared for the possibility." 30 years earlier, Earth's deep space observatories had detected strange gravitational echoes beyond explored space. They appeared only once every few years. Scientists couldn't explain them. Military analysts reached a different conclusion. Someone, or something, was moving through the darkness between galaxies. Earth never told the Council. Not because they wanted to hide information, because they had no proof. Instead, they built more shipyards, more colonies, more fleets, not out of fear, out of responsibility. If the unknown ever arrived, someone had to be ready. Back in the present, the mysterious vessel finally emerged from hyperspace. No one spoke. The ship looked ancient. Its black armor carried scars older than many civilizations. Sections of its hull glowed with deep crimson energy flowing through enormous channels like rivers beneath metal. There were no banners, no markings, no visible bridge. It drifted through space with frightening confidence. Then hundreds of smaller escort ships appeared behind it. Not hundreds, thousands. General Varrock whispered. "Another fleet?" One officer corrected him. "No, General. Our sensors estimate 15,000. The Varkesh Dominion commander immediately transmitted to the unknown fleet. "This is the Varkesh Dominion. Identify yourselves." There was no reply. He tried again. Silence. Then, without warning, one of the Varkesh cruisers simply disappeared. No explosion, no debris. 1 second it existed. The next, it was gone. The entire battlefield froze. Another cruiser vanished. Then another. Panic spread through the Varkesh formation. What weapon is that? No impact detected. No energy beam. No missiles. Admiral Kane watched carefully. "Interesting." Commander Mitchell looked confused. "Sir, they're not destroying the ships." "What? They're removing them." Every officer turned toward him. Kane zoomed in on the sensor logs. There. A faint distortion appeared just before each disappearance. "They're using a technology we've never seen." Suddenly, every communication system in the star system activated at once. Every screen, every headset, every command console. A single voice echoed across space. "Cold, calm, ancient. Attention, this system is now under our jurisdiction. All younger civilizations will surrender immediately. Resistance will be corrected." No one moved. The message continued. "You have forgotten your place." Across the bridge of the UES Resolute, every human officer stood silently. Admiral Kane looked through the forward viewport at the impossible fleet. Then he gave an order that stunned everyone. "Cancel all attack plans against the Varkesh." Commander Mitchell blinked. "Sir, they're our enemy." Kane's eyes never left the unknown armada. Not anymore. He took a slow breath. The galaxy just found a much bigger problem. Outside, the Titan-Class flagship slowly rotated, not toward the Varkesh Dominion, but toward the mysterious fleet advancing out of the darkness. For the first time, humanity wasn't preparing to fight for Earth alone. It was preparing to fight for the entire galaxy. No one had expected the human fleet to change formation. Yet that was exactly what happened. Across the battlefield, more than 20,000 Earth warships moved with breathtaking precision. Entire battle groups shifted position without a single collision or delayed command. Carriers withdrew behind defensive lines while destroyers formed overlapping shield screens. Then the Titans moved. The 3 Titan-class warships slowly advanced until they stood between the mysterious armada and every inhabited world in the Helios system. Not between the enemy and Earth, between the enemy and everyone. General Varrock watched the tactical display in disbelief. "There, protecting us?" No one answered, because the answer was obvious. Yes. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the silence was almost painful. Several delegates looked toward Ambassador Daniel Hayes. One of them finally spoke. "Why?" Daniel looked genuinely confused. "Why what? Why would humanity defend civilizations that mocked you?" Daniel took a slow breath. "Because innocent people live on your worlds." The delegate lowered his head. "We insulted your species. You attacked our diplomats. You sanctioned our colonies." Daniel nodded. "You did. Then why?" His answer was simple. "Because if we only protected our friends, We wouldn't deserve to call ourselves civilized. No one had a reply. Aboard the UES Resolute, Admiral Marcus Kane stood before the fleet-wide command channel. Millions of sailors, pilots, engineers, and Marines watched from thousands of ships. Some were barely 20 years old. Others had served for decades. Every one of them knew what came next. Kane began speaking. Men and women of the United Earth Navy, the mission has changed. A giant holographic map appeared behind him. The Varkesh Dominion is no longer our priority. He pointed toward the mysterious fleet. Our enemy is the force threatening every civilization in this system. He paused. Some of the people behind us once laughed at humanity. They questioned our courage. They underestimated our patience. They called us weak. The bridge remained silent. Kane smiled slightly. They're allowed to be wrong. Several crew members chuckled. Then his expression became serious again. We don't fight because we hate what's in front of us. We fight because we love what's behind us. Those words echoed across every human ship. Pilots climbed into fighters. Marine battalions sealed their armor. Engineers pushed reactors beyond standard combat output. Medical teams prepared emergency wards. Every person knew their role. No speeches. No panic, just purpose. The mysterious fleet finally responded. Its enormous flagship accelerated. Without warning, hundreds of crimson energy lances erupted from its hull. The beams crossed millions of kilometers in seconds. "Incoming!" shouted Commander Mitchell. Admiral Kane remained calm. Shield groups Alpha through Delta. 3 Titan-Class ships activated their primary defense grids. Brilliant blue walls of energy expanded across space. The request from the Varkesh Dominion echoed across every command center in the Helios system. The Varkesh Dominion requests permission to fight beside humanity. For several seconds, no one answered. On the bridge of the UES Resolute, every officer looked toward Admiral Marcus Kane. Just hours earlier, the Varkesh had been preparing to destroy human colonies. Now they were asking for an alliance. Commander Sarah Mitchell broke the silence. "Sir, can we trust them?" Kane didn't answer immediately. Instead, he watched the tactical display as another wave of crimson enemy ships advanced. "They don't have to trust us," he finally said. "They just have to shoot in the same direction." A few officers smiled. It was enough. Open a secure channel. The Varkesh commander's image appeared. His once-proud expression had changed. There was no arrogance left, only determination. "Admiral Kane, I owe your people an apology." Kane shook his head. "You can apologize after we survive." The Varkesh commander gave a short nod. "Agreed." Within minutes, something the galaxy had never witnessed began to unfold. Human officers transmitted tactical data to former enemies. Encrypted communication protocols were shared. Target priorities were synchronized. Flight paths were calculated. No politics, no arguments. Only cooperation. Across the battlefield, human and Varkesh fleets adjusted formation until they operated as one force. Watching from the Galactic Council chamber, Speaker Zarthak whispered, "I never believed humans could forgive this quickly." Daniel Hayes answered quietly, "They haven't forgiven. They've prioritized." The unknown armada advanced without hesitation. Its formation stretched across nearly half the star system. Massive crimson warships surrounded the ancient flagship like wolves protecting their leader. Then the mysterious voice returned. "You continue resisting. You continue failing. Surrender your fleets. Your civilizations will be preserved." Admiral Kane smiled slightly. "Funny." Commander Mitchell looked over. "What is? They still think we're negotiating." Kane stood. "Broadcast on every frequency." The communications officer nodded. "Channel open." Kane looked directly into the camera. "This is Admiral Marcus Kane of the United Earth Navy. You offered surrender. Our answer is simple." He paused. "No." The single word spread across thousands of ships, across dozens of civilizations, across the entire Helios system. For the first time in history, the galaxy heard someone refuse the unknown. The enemy responded immediately. Hundreds of crimson portals opened behind the ancient flagship. More warships emerged. Then more, then even more. General Varrock stared in horror. "They've been hiding reinforcements." The tactical display updated again. Enemy ships, 20,000, 25,000, 30,000. Even combined, the Allied fleet was now outnumbered. A nervous officer whispered, "Sir, we can't win this." Admiral Kane overheard him. He walked over calmly. "Lieutenant, yes, sir. Winning isn't today's mission." The young officer looked confused. "What is?" Kane looked toward the stars. "Making sure humanity isn't fighting alone anymore." At that exact moment, something unexpected happened. A green icon appeared on the tactical map, then another, then 50, then hundreds. Incoming transmissions flooded the command network. "This is the Arcturan Republic. We're joining the defense. This is the Solari Union. Our fleet is inbound. The Karen Protectorate has entered the system. The Orion Trade Coalition commits all available ships, one after another." Civilizations that had once ignored Earth began arriving, not because they were ordered to, because humanity had shown them what leadership looked like. Within an hour, thousands of Allied ships filled the battlefield. The line protecting Helios Prime grew stronger. Daniel Hayes watched the tactical display with quiet pride. "They finally understand." A nearby delegate asked, "Understand what?" Daniel smiled. "Strength isn't measured by how many enemies fear you. It's measured by how many people choose to stand beside you." Before anyone could reply, the ancient enemy flagship began glowing with an intensity never seen before. Every human sensor screamed at once. Commander Mitchell's face turned pale. "Admiral, our scanners estimate that weapon could destroy the entire star system." Kane stared at the growing crimson light. Then he gave the order every officer had hoped never to hear. "Bring the Titans forward. If that weapon fires, we stop it, no matter the cost." Every ship in the Helios system received the same command. "Bring the Titans forward." 3 Titan-Class warships broke formation, their colossal engines burning with a deep blue glow that illuminated millions of kilometers of empty space. They advanced slowly, not because they lacked speed, but because they wanted every civilization watching to understand exactly what humanity was willing to place between innocent lives and destruction. Behind them, the Allied fleets tightened their formation. Human destroyers locked shields with Varkesh battlecruisers. Arcturan carriers launched hundreds of interceptors. The Solari Union deployed electronic warfare satellites that blanketed the system with defensive jamming. For the first time in galactic history, former enemies stood shoulder to shoulder. On the bridge of the UES Resolute, Admiral Marcus Kane watched the enemy flagship charging its weapon. The tactical display counted down automatically. Weapon charge, 62%, 68%, 73%. Commander Sarah Mitchell looked at him. "If that weapon fires," Kane finished her sentence, "Helios Prime dies." There was no panic in his voice, only certainty. He activated the fleet-wide command channel. "This is Admiral Kane. No matter what happens in the next few minutes, our mission remains the same. Protect the civilians. If one Titan falls, the others hold the line." No one questioned the order. Across 20,000 human ships, every captain acknowledged with a single word: "Understood." Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the delegates could barely breathe. The same humans they had mocked for generations were now preparing to sacrifice their greatest warships to save worlds that had never shown them respect. Speaker Zarthok lowered his head. "I judged your species by its age." Daniel Hayes quietly replied, "And we judged yours by its wisdom." Neither of them spoke again. The battlefield demanded all of their attention. Suddenly, the enemy flagship reached full power. The crimson sphere at its bow expanded until it dwarfed nearby cruisers. Space itself rippled around it. Every sensor in the system screamed warnings. Commander Mitchell's voice cut through the bridge. "Enemy weapon locked," Kane stood. "All Titans. Maximum shield output." 3 brilliant blue barriers expanded outward, overlapping into a single defensive wall stretching thousands of kilometers across space. The Allied fleets immediately withdrew behind the Titans. Then, the ancient flagship fired. A river of crimson energy erupted across the void. It wasn't a beam. It looked more like a collapsing star forced into a single direction. The blast struck the human shield wall with unimaginable force. The Helios system disappeared beneath blinding light. Shockwaves rippled across nearby planets. Several smaller warships lost power instantly. On the Resolute, alarms exploded throughout the bridge. Forward shields at 70%, 58, 42. Hull plating groaned under the pressure. Commander Mitchell gripped her console. "We can't hold this forever." Kane never looked away from the viewport. "We don't have to." At that exact moment, Lieutenant Ethan Brooks shouted from the sensor station. "Sir, I've found something." The enemy flagship's weapon had exposed a brief weakness in its own defensive field. A tiny opening. Visible for less than 4 seconds. Brooks highlighted it on the tactical map. "That's the only gap." Every senior officer stared at the display. Commander Mitchell whispered, "Even if we fire everything, the window is too short." Kane smiled for the first time since entering the system. "Not for a Titan." He turned toward the weapons officer. "Prepare the Omega rail cannon." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The Omega cannon had never been fired in combat. It required nearly all the Titan's reactor output. One shot, one chance. If it failed, nothing would stand between the enemy and the billions of lives behind the human fleet. Kane took a slow breath, then gave the order. "Charge the cannon." Deep within the UES Resolute, reactors roared to life. Across the battlefield, even the enemy flagship appeared to pause. The oldest weapon humanity had ever built was finally about to speak. The entire Helios system seemed to hold its breath. Deep inside the UES Resolute, warning lights flooded the engineering decks as every reactor diverted power toward a single weapon. Gigantic superconducting rails, hidden within the Titan's armored spine, awakened one section at a time. The vibration could be felt across the ship, not from instability, but from raw power. Chief Engineer Olivia Carter watched the reactor display climb into levels that had never been reached outside simulation. 92%, 95, 98. Her executive officer looked nervous. "Chief, if we push any harder, we'll burn out half the ship." Olivia nodded. "I know. Do it anyway." On the bridge, Admiral Marcus Kane remained fixed on the tactical display. The enemy flagship was already recharging its superweapon. They would not get a second opportunity. Commander Sarah Mitchell spoke quietly. "The weakness will only appear for 3.8 seconds." Kane answered without hesitation. "That's enough." Across the Allied fleet, every captain received the same transmission. "Protect the Resolute." Instantly, thousands of warships accelerated. Human destroyers surged forward, placing themselves between the Titan and the enemy. Varkesh cruisers deployed overlapping shield arrays. Arcturan interceptors swarmed incoming enemy fighters. For the first time, the galaxy wasn't fighting as separate civilizations. It was fighting as one. The ancient enemy commander finally broke its silence. Its cold voice echoed across every communication channel. "You sacrifice yourselves for lesser species." "Illogical." Admiral Kane opened a direct channel. "We don't measure lives by species. We measure them by innocence." The ancient voice answered almost immediately. "Compassion creates weakness." Kane smiled. "No, it creates something worth defending." Without another word, he closed the channel. The Omega rail cannon reached full charge. Across the Titan's hull, enormous armored plates slowly separated, revealing the kilometer-long barrel hidden beneath. Blue-white energy danced across its surface. Every nearby ship instinctively increased its distance. The weapon generated enough electromagnetic force to interfere with sensors across the battlefield. Lieutenant Ethan Brooks counted down. "Enemy shield fluctuation in 5. The bridge became silent. 4. Commander Mitchell locked the targeting solution. 3. Weapons Officer David Chen placed his hand over the firing control. 2. The weakness appeared. A tiny opening in the enemy's defensive field, exactly where Brooks predicted. 1. Chen looked toward Admiral Kane. "Permission to fire." Kane gave a single nod. "Fire." The Omega rail cannon unleashed its payload. There was no explosion, no flash. Only a brilliant line of blue light so intense it seemed to split the darkness itself. The projectile crossed millions of kilometers in less than a heartbeat. It struck the opening. For one terrifying second, nothing happened. Then the enemy flagship's shields collapsed. A wave of blue energy ripped across its massive hull. The ancient vessel drifted sideways. Its crimson superweapon flickered violently before shutting down completely. Cheers erupted across the Allied fleet. But Kane didn't celebrate. He noticed something everyone else missed. The flagship wasn't destroyed. It was slowing down, almost studying them. Then, for the first time since entering the system, the ancient vessel transmitted a different message. Not to the galaxy, only to humanity. This outcome was unexpected. Kane frowned. What are they doing? Before anyone could answer, hundreds of smaller enemy warships abruptly ceased fire. They formed a protective circle around their damaged flagship. Then every one of them began charging hyperspace drives. Commander Mitchell looked confused. They're retreating? Brooks shook his head. No, ma'am. They're making room. For what? His face lost all color as long-range sensors updated. Beyond the edge of the system, space itself fractured. Not one hyperspace gateway. Not 10. Thousands. An armada unlike anything imaginable began emerging from the darkness. The computer identified the first wave. Unknown vessel count, 100,000? The number kept climbing. Admiral Kane stared at the impossible display. The fleet they had just fought had only been the advance force. The real war had finally arrived. The Omega rail cannons struck like the judgment of history. The ancient flagship's shields shattered. A heartbeat later, the projectile tore through its armored core, igniting a chain reaction that lit the Helios system brighter than its own star. For the first time in thousands of years, the invaders had been wounded. Across the battlefield, their perfect formation broke. Confusion spread through the enemy fleet as emergency commands flooded their channels. On the bridge of the UES Resolute, Lieutenant Ethan Brooks stared at the tactical display. Sir, they're pulling back. Admiral Marcus Kane didn't celebrate. Confirm. They're retreating across the entire front. One by one, the Crimson warships disengaged, recovering damaged vessels before opening hyperspace corridors. Within minutes, the endless armada that had threatened the galaxy began disappearing into the darkness. But before the final flagship departed, a transmission arrived. The ancient commander's face appeared for the first time. Scarred, calm, unbroken. It looked directly at Admiral Kane. You have accomplished what no civilization has achieved in 10,000 years. You stopped us. A long silence followed. We came believing your species would kneel. Instead, we discovered a civilization willing to stand between strangers and extinction. The ancient commander lowered its head, a gesture of respect. We will remember humanity. The transmission ended. The last enemy flagship vanished into hyperspace. The war was over. Silence filled the Helios system. Then every allied communication channel erupted with cheers. Human, Varkesh. Arksharin, Solari. Species that had once distrusted one another celebrated together. Not because Earth had conquered the galaxy, but because someone had finally given it hope. Weeks later, the Galactic Council gathered in emergency session. This time, there was no laughter. Every delegate stood as Ambassador Daniel Hayes entered the chamber. Speaker Zarthok stepped forward. Humanity, we misjudged your patience. We mistook your kindness for weakness. We believed your diplomacy existed because you feared war. He bowed his head. We were wrong. The entire chamber followed. For the first time in galactic history, every representative stood in silent respect for Earth. Daniel accepted the gesture. Then he spoke. We didn't come here for apologies. We came here to make sure no child, human or alien, ever has to witness another war like this. The chamber remained silent, not because they disagreed, because they finally understood. Months later, Earth was unanimously offered command of the Galactic Defense Alliance. The media expected Admiral Kane to accept. Instead, he smiled and said, Humanity didn't save the galaxy to rule it. We saved it so everyone could choose their own future. Years passed. Trade flourished. Former enemies became trusted allies. Human academies trained officers from dozens of worlds. The Titans remained in service, not as symbols of conquest, but as guardians who answered every distress call, regardless of the species asking for help. One evening, on a peaceful colony world, a young alien child looked up at the stars and asked his father, Is it true humans defeated the greatest fleet in history? His father smiled. They did. Were they the strongest species? The old veteran looked toward the distant blue glow of a Titan-Class warship crossing the night sky. No, they were simply the only ones brave enough to stand when everyone else stepped back. The child nodded quietly. Above them, the Titan disappeared into the stars. From that day forward, every military academy in the galaxy engraved the same sentence above its entrance. Never mistake humanity's desire for peace as a lack of strength, because when the innocent have nowhere left to stand, humanity becomes the line that evil cannot cross.